In the spring of 2020, we launched the Southern Entrepreneur Conference, where people in the community could hear talks from local entrepreneurs who had built successful businesses from the ground up.
We had over 70 people sign up, but of course COVID happened, so we had to move the conference online. After 10,000 views of the videos, we realized we were onto something special. So for 2021, we decided to keep it online.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, Jason Hunter Design, Panasonic, whose world headquarters is right here in Peachtree City, and BMW of South Atlanta, who will have a commercial during the intermission of each video.
Growing up in Mountain City was very unique. Now it's unique. Then it was just life. It was a way of living. We were poor, like growing up in my family, but no poorer than anyone else. So you really didn't know that you were poor. You knew you didn't have a lot of things. I mean, there were some families that were a little more blessed and could do things, but we grew up a lot of love, with great parents, mom and dad both loving, did what they could to take care of you. But we didn't have a lot extra. A lot of hand-me-down clothes, a lot of very, very thin Christmases and birthdays. We ate a lot of beans. I thought beans were my dad's favorite meal for years until I was old enough to go to the grocery store for my mom and realize that the whole family could eat on 99 cents. So that's the point where I realized that we didn't have a lot of money, and that's why we were eating it. And the rare times that we went out to eat, I remember a story I tell often of Dad. We'd go to, like, say we went to Burger King, we'd come out and he would, we'd all order something and he would say, well, I'm not hungry. And like, okay. So we'd eat, and of course, you're being a kid, you never would eat everything that's on your plate. And Dad would always, eat what we left off, didn't want to waste anything. And then once I got old enough, I realized that he couldn't afford it for himself, but he could for us. And those are the type of sacrifices that I grew up with, as far as my parents making those sacrifices so we wouldn't do without. The biggest influence I've ever had in my life of success is definitely my dad. I remember one of the earlier ones that, we went to church every Sunday night, every Wednesday. And we would beat the preacher there. Like, we'd get there and have to wait 20 minutes before church even started. And I'd always ask Dad, like, why are we here? Why we get here this early? And he would always be like, well, it's better be 20 minutes earlier than 1 minute late. And that was one thing that always stuck with me, of how important it was to always be early. And I've always been that way. Like, if I have an appointment, I'm 15, 20 minutes early. And when I interview people for my job, if they're not early, that tells me a lot about them from my upbringing. And that was one of the big ones. Honesty, never lie. Those were big, and always be working. And he'd always tell me about being the hardest worker in the room, and that's something I take pride in for every job I've had. But he'd always say, if you're the hardest worker in the room, you're the hardest man to replace, so you'll be the last one replaced. When I was young, I think it was even before I started karate, I would always practice it from what I saw in the movies and what I seen. And I didn't have a punching bag because we couldn't afford one, so I could only punch and kick so much. So I took a pretty good interest in stretching because, Bruce Lee stretched. If I was going to be Bruce Lee, I'd need to stretch. And I remember I'd put my foot in a tree limb, and it was probably about head height, and I'd put the limb, I'd do like almost a complete split, and I would hold it for 15 to 20 minutes at a time, just to get a complete stretch to be able to help me with that aspect of it. And it's just, I've always found my weaknesses, and I found ways that I could improve on them, and that's what always infatuated with me, to push harder and be better.
He said he was teaching his self-discipline, and he would stand there for an hour with his foot up almost high as his head in the fork of that tree. But then 45 minutes or hour, he'd take that one down, stretch, and put his other one up there, foot, for 45 minutes or hour. And that's when I asked his mom, and reckon that boy's going to be all right, standing out there. Being honest, I think has stuck with him a lot, because I've always teach him, always do people the way you want to be done, and then you'll never have no problem, won't never be nothing you can't work out. And I think he's hung on to that, and everything that I've tried to, teach him his work and being honest and always, caring for others. And he's really he's really done that, and I just can't be proud enough for him.
Cliff was a very, very important part of my upbringing. I probably would have been in a lot more trouble without Cliff. He helped me. He guided me to make better decisions. He guided me to do things, and mainly it's because of his influence. He's always a good kid. He's always did the good things. He always did what he was supposed to do, and me and him had such a good friendship that just rubbed off on me, and that was the biggest influence that kept me out of trouble, because a lot of people I hang out with and have ended up in trouble, and I have a really, really strong feeling I would have ended up there as well if it wasn't for Cliff's influences.
Well, I mean, we were born into friendship. I mean, like literally, I always joke that we've been friends my lifetime plus 9 months, because he was born and I served 9 months of womb time, and so I've always joked that we've got that 9 extra months, because as soon as I was born, Tim, his brother Mitch, we were all around the same age, so we were born into friendship, and which was a blessing. He's sharp, he's sharp, whether he wanted to admit it back then or not. He's sharp. He was driven, he was motivated, and I mean that was abundantly clear from an earlier age. From when we get in high school, even like high schoolers do, a lot of times we just wanted to kind of sit back and maybe not do much, as I'm talking as a whole, but he always had the capability. And I think the biggest, if I look back, knowing what I know now, the biggest thing he ever did that was probably selfishly one of my least favorite things he ever did was move, because I knew by him moving that success was going to be there, because I knew he's always driven.
When I was a kid, I always watching the karate films. Mom would take us to the movie store. It's like a little cheap knockoff Blockbuster, and I would rent a movie, and then her and my brothers would rent a movie. And as soon as we got home, I had to watch my movie. It was either a ninja movie or a karate movie, and I'd watch it, and then I'd go out in the yard and practice until dark for like hours. And we couldn't afford karate lessons. And one time there was a karate school that opened up in town, and Mom and Dad scraped enough money to put me in there, and then I loved it. I competed. I competed all over. I competed in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and I loved it. And I was very accomplished at it. And then from there, you get a little bit older, and it was important to me I wanted to be a fighter, not just a karate fighter. And karate fighters, they base their competitions off points, and the point system didn't fare well with me, considering at that age I was 100 pounds. I was a very small kid at that time. So because I was paired with someone my age group, not my weight class, I was having to fight bigger kids. So it wasn't advantageous for me. So I got into boxing. In boxing, I fought someone my skill level and my size, and I was able to hit them as hard as I wanted to. And with karate, you couldn't. You were limited to a certain touch. So so injuries didn't happen. But with boxing, I was able to hit them as many times as I could until they went to sleep or the referee broke us up. Some of my first big influences in sports was through boxing. Had a couple of really, really important coaches in my life, Cobb Riddle and Marvin Fritz, and made a lot of really good friends through boxing. And I did that for a while. Then I transitioned from boxing because I was tired of boxing, because I fought it at like 106, 112 pounds, and I was tired of staying that light. I was tired of dieting. I was tired of running countless miles. So I started powerlifting, lifting weights, and eating. And several years ago on, I started putting on some weight and getting strong. And the Tough Man was traveling through town. And the Tough Man is bikers, bullies, bouncers, the toughest of the toughest would all fight, and they'd be like a $2,000 prize purse. And I started fighting in those, and I started winning. And I won in Tennessee, and North Carolina, and Virginia. I've won a lot of them. And from there, they asked me to quit fighting in them because I've won so many when I was in North Carolina. So I wanted to continue it, and everybody told me I need to go talk to Casey Oxendine. They kept saying, you need to go talk to Casey Oxendine. I knew of Casey, but I didn't know Casey, because another childhood friend was training with him at that time, Ian Boxhorn. So I I went and met Casey, and just super cocky, super confident, and full of myself. And me being at that time, I was probably 215, 220, very, very strong, very athletic. And then have a guy that was 165 pounds, 5'9", just beat me to death with jiu-jitsu. And that was my first introduction to MMA. And I actually, within a couple of weeks of trying that first class, I moved to where he was at. When I moved from Mountain City to Johnson City. And my focus was, well, I'd rather miss work than miss training. So I'd rather drive to work and be close to training so I couldn't miss that. And I did that for several years. As an MMA fighter, we fought, it was an amateur champion. We turned pro really quick. Like my first 3 fights as an amateur were like knockouts, and like, I mean fast knockouts, like 9-second knockouts, 11-second, 16, and people just quit wanting to fight. And we went pro, had a good record of 16-10. Not a stellar record, but it was a great record considering that I didn't say no to anyone. I fought several UFC veterans and did really good. Had some really impressive knockouts from guys who did really, really well in the UFC. And then I guess the highlight of my career on paper was I fought Jason Mayhem Miller on Strikeforce. It was the first live TV show, first live MMA fight that wasn't a pay-per-view in the States. So it was a really big deal. It was honored to be able to fight there. And then I had, I think, one fight after that, and that was the fight in New Mexico. And that's the fight that I lost and shouldn't have, and because I developed limitations, and because I was still in my peak, I really believe, in my fighting, because my brain just now started catching on to where my body should have been. Because I was so hard-headed, I wouldn't listen. And like my physical limitations, it's my elbows. Like that's as far as they move, and they don't straighten all the way. And I was having trouble defending chokes and different things. So that's when I decided to get out because of my physical reasons, and then just coupled with the financial reasons and realizing I had to do something bigger because it's not me anymore. It's me and my wife. It's the things that we wanted to create, the experiences that I want to give her, and I want to be able to share, and I want to be able to walk around when I'm 60. And like I said, I was a battling ram, so if it continued where I was, walking at 60 probably wouldn't have been an option.
We're taking this intermission to thank our sponsors, Jason Hunter Design, Panasonic Automotive, and to watch this lifestyle video from BMW South Atlanta. They have a great service center there, as well as new and used vehicles for sale.
It's torturous. And in waking up, can you imagine using your body as a weapon 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week for 8 weeks? Everything hurts. I mean, your brain hurts, your body hurts, your hands are broke. I've had 70 stitches in my face. My teeth have been knocked out. I've had elbow surgeries. My hands have been broke countless times. My nose has been countless times. You treat your body like an anvil, and now I can really feel it. Like I'm always stiff. I'm always hurting. I still do jiu-jitsu, but I can't train as hard as I'd like, and I'm definitely not getting hit anymore. When I first met Christy, I'd had a bad relationship, and so I wasn't dating. Then I had one of my friends from Tennessee, Maggie. Maggie has basically called me and did this introduction with Christy, and I says, well, I can't date. Most girls don't understand that I've got to be in the gym 8 to 10 hours a day. They don't understand that I need to take naps of a day, that I've got to be dieting, that I'm going to be grouchy. And Maggie's like, Tim, this girl's in the gym as much as you are. She works out a couple times a day. I think it could work. So we met on a blind date in Chattanooga. And that was my last first date ever. Like, we went out and she was convinced that it was nice. She's going to see me and that's it. But I was convinced that it was going to work, and it did. And like, we didn't have a lot. Like, I made a lot of money teaching. I was a very, very high paid instructor, but you're teaching 3 to 4 classes a day. So your dollar per hour is ridiculous, but you're only working 3 to 4 hours. And she had just left her job in Tennessee, which is her business, to come here. And I showed up to work one day, and there was locks on the door. And I contacted the owner, and the owner's like, well, we've really not been paying rent. And so my dream just shut down right there. So with the last $1,000 that she had saved, we'd opened up at the end of Moab Fighting Concepts, which is now Independent MMA. We started that gym with a little bit of equipment that I've been saving, and that gym's been successful the whole time, but not enough to fully support us. She woke me up, or not on purpose, but I heard her rummaging through her jewelry box. And I remember asking her, I said, what are you doing? She goes, oh, I'm getting ready to go get groceries. I was like, okay. I was like, what are you doing? I mean, you've been in a jewelry box for 10 minutes. And she's like, well, I've got to go sell some jewelry so we can buy groceries. And at that time, I've never been more disappointed in myself as a man. I couldn't provide for her, so she had to sell her jewelry to do that. And at that time, I realized I had to make a change. Because fighting paid well, but I would train for 6 to 8 weeks for someone to sprain their ankle. Then I couldn't fight, and it was determined on somebody else's being able to make it. And I wasn't an easy fight for anyone, even the ones that were so much better than me. I was still a very dangerous fighter because I was so aggressive. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in sales. And the reason I knew I wanted to be in sales is it's in my DNA. My father taught me I was to always be the hardest worker in the room, and I was. And I was at the gym one day, and there was some real estate agents come in and tried out a class. And at that time, I remember texting my wife, and I'm like, I want to sell real estate. And she goes, well, I'm not sure if you can sell real estate. And I was like, I'm going to outwork them. I said, all I have to do is outwork them. And she's like, you're right. That's all you got to do, and that's definitely something you can do. But now the problem was, I think school and books and testing was around $800. And she ended up doing a title loan on her car to pay for that. And that's how I got into real estate. She pawned her title to get me into school.
Well, when he was actively fighting professionally, it was intense. The training camps were long. The commitment was 100%, 1,000,000%. Everything revolved around cutting weight and getting better. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then he may train like that, and then 2 days before the fight, something happens and the fighter can't fight. And so the whole thing is off. And of course, you don't get paid unless you actually step in the ring. So 2.5 months of preparation and nothing happens. So that was the first couple of years of our marriage, and then he at some point decided, it's time to make a change. It was hard. We had opened a gym that we worked at 16 hours a day. I actually had a hair salon inside the gym. So I would personal train clients in the morning, teach them kickboxing, cut hair, teach them kickboxing some more, and in the meantime he would train all day, teach fighters, teach jiu-jitsu, things like that. When he decided he wanted to get into real estate, of course I'm going to support whatever he decides he wants to do, but I was concerned because we were barely making it then. It took us both being at the gym all the time. So he went to school for a couple months, and then he started selling real estate, but it takes a while before anything ever happens. I remember it was like 9 weeks in, and I was like, you're gone all the time, and you haven't done anything. You haven't sold anything. There's no money, and I'm scared to death that we're just going to be homeless. But he never wavered in his dedication and his knowing that he was going to succeed no matter what. And he did. And 1 led to 2, and 2 led to 10, and 10 led to 30, and 30 led to 100. And he worked harder and he worked smarter, and he's where he is today.
My real estate teams here. I've got one in Tennessee, and I've got a team in Noonan, and they're different for different reasons. And the growth of them has been different. When I started out in real estate in Newnan, we'd come out and I decided I wanted to sell houses. And I wanted, in the beginning, I wanted to sell one a month because the average agent was doing like 8 deals a year. I'm like, if I can do one a month, that's 12. I still want to run my gym. I still want to be able to save money and take my wife on vacations. So that was my goal when I first started in real estate. And quickly, like in the first 5 or 6 months, I ended up closing like 16 deals or something. It was a lot more than we expected. And I remember telling my wife, like, every time I'm at work, I'm losing money. And I remember working, like we would work like up to the first complete year, like selling a lot of houses, and I can't work past 4. And I was able to scale that business from doing special things. One, I hired a coach early. I was able to do things that other people wouldn't. I would make hundreds of calls a day. I would call for sale by owners. I would call expireds and different types of lead sources that you'd pay for, and they'd give you lists of names. And I would hammer them out all day long when nobody else would. And I mean, it would be 100, 200 calls a day, and it would be no big deal because if I didn't have anything else to do, my wife always complained about me never being at home. And it was because I had to be somewhere where I could work, where I could focus toward that goal. I really dove into social media marketing, so I was able to get leads that way. It used to be really easy to get leads that way. It's not so easy anymore. And so I was able to scale pretty good. This year, my business will do 300 deals in Newnan, and I'll do over 100 in Tennessee. So that's over 400 deals, which is impressive as far as a real estate team. And the team here is run a little different. We have, I think this year, we've probably averaged about 8 agents. I've got 4 or 5 really good admin. I've got a really good listing specialist. And my right-hand person, Mackenzie, she helps me run a lot of that because I do have to travel to Tennessee to help with that business and that team up there. And that team has started a little different. I started with one of my childhood friends, Joey, and I partnered with his partner, which was Ariel, and her husband, which is now the team leader. So both of those guys have really stepped up, and Ariel handle all the back end of both businesses. They're driven differently up there, and the expectations are not as high, but they do. Their team may not close as many, but per person, they close more than anybody I have. And it's super important that the Tennessee team stays super close and intimate because it's important to that culture up there. And the culture in Newnan is very, very loving and very, very fun, very let me help you. So we've been able to grow that one quite a bit bigger and have less expectations per person than we do in the Tennessee team. Some of the big things that I try to teach my agents is basically the customer's always right. Your opinion of what happened doesn't matter. My opinion of what happened doesn't matter. It's always the customer's. And if you did something wrong in their eyes, you correct it, you fix it. So the customer's always right. So we've created the entire business to be customer centric. Everything is about the customer experience. It's about how they feel about things, what they're looking to get out of it, and it's about a 5-star experience. One of the things I always say, if we do not get a 5-star experience rating, we got a 0. Like there's no 4.5, there's no 4.75. It's a 0. It's a 5 or it's 0. So we really strive for that. And I've put a lot of people in place to keep that going. If I was able to get all the entrepreneurs in the world that would listen, my advice to them would be, number one is you're only as good as the people you hang out with. If you want to up your game on anything, you have to up the level of the people you play with. You have to surround yourself with winners in whatever you're looking to do. And you have to surround yourself with people who want to see you win. The biggest problem is I hear a lot of people, when you win, it's more important to look and see who's not clapping than it's looking to see who is clapping. Because all your haters won't clap. All your fans will. All the people who want to see you succeed. And a lot of people want to see you succeed, but they never want to see you succeed more than they are. The people that play professional football didn't get that way from playing on a peewee team. They as their skills went up, so did the level they played at. And it's able to push them to the level they're at now. And business is the same way. If I was going to teach one thing, it'd be Surround yourself with winners and people who want to see you win.